Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And welcome to the Children's Majlis for the 5th night of Muharram. Now, tonight, I'm going to start by showing you a short video. And once we've seen that video, then we can talk a little bit about what we've seen. Okay. I might just stop that for a minute. Not sure what happened there, but that's okay. Okay, today's lesson, sorry, I was going to share a video with you, but I might have to show you a link of that later on. Don't know why. I might attach the links. You can see it later. I was going to show you a video of people going for ziyarat to Karbala. Has anyone seen any videos or has anyone been for ziyarat of Imam Hussein? Have you been, Shayan? You've been. Oh, that you're very lucky. Did you go a long time ago? Okay. Have you been? Have you been, Isa? You were one. Oh, that's a long time ago, isn't it? Okay. Well, those of you who have you been, Ali? Sorry? You were 3 months old. Okay. And have you been? Oh, that's good. Oh, okay. So you were all quite young. So for those of you who haven't been, or for those of you who can't remember, it would be nice if you can see this video. Maybe next time while we're waiting, I'll show it to you before we start, because for some reason I couldn't share it while we were doing the link as well. Why do we go to visit? Why do we go to Karbala to see the shrines of Imam Hussein? Why do we go for ziyarah? Arman? Yes, but why we can do that from here. We're doing that today in the majlis, but why do we make the effort to go all the way to Karbala? Let's see if I can ask Ali, because he says he's been. Okay, so you get blessings for going to the actual shrine to do ziyarah in Karbala where Imam Hussein is buried. You also accomplish something which Allah wants you to do. It's part of Islam. It's a mustahab act. Fatima, it's part of Azadari. That's right. We talked about that a few days ago. Have you got something different, Shayan? Okay, so Imam Hussein invites us, but Imam Hussein invites all his Azadar, all those people who really are true Azadar of Imam Hussein, he invites them to Karbala, to his shrine. So at some point or the other, inshallah, we will all get the opportunity to go and to do ziyarah. Okay, so let's begin today's lesson by seeing what we're going to learn today in this lesson. We're going to talk about this word ziyarah and show how it means to get closer to Allah through the Ahlul Bayt. Okay? Remember we talked about how we should keep Allah as number one in our lives. We said that those who have taqwa, those who are pious, in everything they do, they remember Allah first and they look and see, is this what Allah wants me to do? So by doing ziyarah, it's another way of getting closer to Allah through the Ahlul Bayt. We will highlight, or we will talk about 3 famous ziyarat of Imam Hussein that we recite: Ziyarat-e-Waritha, Ziyarat-e-Ashura, and Ziyarat-e-Nahya. And we're going to talk about ziyarat. Let me finish talking first, and then we'll do questions a bit later. We'll understand how ziyarat is not just, when we recite these ziyarats, it's not just about reciting them as a ritual, but understanding and trying to apply the ziyarat in our lives. Okay. There is a verse from the Quran as well, which I'd like to play. Okay. So the meaning of the verse, I'll just read the English translation for you. It's from Surah Kahf, and it's verse number 28. And in this verse, Allah says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Content yourself, or that means make yourself happy with the company of those who supplicate their Lord morning and evening. What does supplicate their Lord mean? Do you know? Yes, Amina?
I talk to him or like do dua.
Or pray to him. Okay? So we should be happy with the company of those who pray to their Lord morning and evening, desiring his face, and do not lose sight of them, desiring the glitter of the life of this world. We'll talk about what this verse means a little bit later on when we begin today's lesson. Let's look at the keywords for today. So the keyword for today is, the first one is ziyarah. And the ziyarah has two meanings. One is to visit the places where the Anbiya and the A'imma are buried. So as we said, when we go to do ziyarah of Imam Hussein, it's going to visit where Imam Hussein is buried in Karbala. And then there are other Imams who also have shrines, and there are prophets who also have shrines. So we can go to do the ziyarah of where the prophets and the Imams are buried. That is, when we visit them, that's called ziyarah. The other meaning of ziyarah is the one that says number 2. If you can see, it says to give salams to the Anbiya and A'imma at their graves, or to recite the ziyarah from far away. So remember yesterday when we finished our majlis, we did a quick ziyarah of Imam Hussein. Ali came to the front and he recited, Assalamu alayka ala al-Hussein, wa ala Ali ibn al-Hussein, wa ala awlad al-Hussein, wa ala ashab al-Hussein. This is a ziyarah that we recite. We can either recite it if we are standing in front of the shrine or the haram or the mosque where the imams or prophets are buried, or we can recite it from wherever we are in the world. All right? So those are the two meanings of the word ziyarah. The other keyword is this word. Can you see it? It's zawara. Zawara in Arabic means to turn away from something. So we'll talk about that a bit later on, but remember this. Zawara and ziyara, they're actually related to each other, and we'll talk about how they're related. So let's begin with the lesson. So the word ziyara in Arabic originates from the word zawara. That was our second keyword. Zawara means to turn away or deflect from something. And the word ziyara actually means visiting someone, but when you visit that person and you focus on that person only, that means you're turning away from everything else and only concentrating on that person. When someone is sick and you might go to see them in hospital, do you go and look at all the other patients who are sitting in the ward as well, or do you just sit in your relative or your friend's little cubicle or bedroom? You might close the door and draw the curtains and just talk to the sick person that you've gone to visit. Is that what you would do?
Yeah.
Because you want to concentrate on that person who is your friend or your relative who's sick. You don't want to see all the other patients on the ward. You just want to see that one person. So you're going to focus on that person. And when we do ziyarah of our imams and our prophets, whether we go to Karbala or whether we are reciting ziyarah from home in Sydney, we are only focusing on that imam or those imams or those prophets that we are going to be doing the ziyarah of. We don't want to think about other things that we might be doing during the day, or the book we were reading, or the game we were playing, or what we were chatting with our friends or sisters and brothers. When we do ziyarah, we turn away from everything else that's part of our day, and we concentrate only on the imam whose ziyarah we're doing. Okay? So When we do the ziyarah of our Ai and the Anbiya, we are turning away from our worldly existence for that short period of time, and we are focusing on our inner or spiritual state. That verse that we looked at the beginning of the lesson from Surah Kahf tells us that we should look or be happy with the company of those who remind us of Allah. And we should turn away from the world from time to time, because which is what we try to do when we are doing ziyarah. We should just look away from all the things which distract us in this world and just concentrate on those people who are close to Allah. And when we do that, then when we recite this, that's the way we can recite ziyarah with the true understanding and meaning. And it can be a very powerful way for us to connect with Allah through the Ahlul Bayt. When we recite ziyarah, we shouldn't just do it as a habit or because everyone is doing it, so we will follow and do it. We should try to do it with full heart and full meaning. And when we do that, that's when we will gain the benefits of reciting the ziyarah. Okay, we should focus on our ziyarah and why we're doing it if we want to gain benefit from it. Now let's look at the different ziyarah which we have been recommended to recite. So the first one is a ziyarah called Ziyarat-e-Waritha. Have you heard of this ziyarah before? It begins like this. You might have heard it. You might not remember it by name. It begins, Assalamu alayka ya Adama sifwatillah. Assalamu alayka Nuhin nabiyillah. Okay? Ziyarat-e-Waritha has been taught to us by Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq. Which Imam is he? Which number Imam is he? Amina? Which one? Fifth or sixth? Do you know, Samin? Correct. Imam Jafar Sadiq was our sixth Imam. And this Ziyarat-e-Waritha was taught to us by Imam Jafar Sadiq, and it's to be recited on Thursday nights mainly. The ziyarah has been called Warith, Ziyarat-e-Warith, because Warith means an inheritor. And because Imam Hussein, were you going to say that? Imam Hussein is the inheritor of the Anbiya and the other important personalities who are remembered in this ziyarah. Do you know what is an inheritor? Do you know, Zaina? Tell me what is an inheritor. Okay, so an inheritor is someone who gets something or inherits something from his ancestors. So for example, my grandparents, if they have something like some important piece of jewelry or some special possessions, they might, when they die, I would inherit those things because I am their grandchild. So in the same way, Imam Hussein was the inheritor of prophets and Anbiya before him. And that is why in this ziyarah, he is known as Warith, because he is the one who inherited all those special things that they stood for. Okay? This ziyarah begins by sending greetings and salams to Imam Hussein as follows. So you can see it on the screen and I'll read it and you can listen with me, or you can read it quietly to yourself if you like. Peace be on you, O inheritor of Adam, the chosen one of Allah. Peace be on you, O inheritor of Nuh, the prophet of Allah. Peace be on you, O inheritor of Ibrahim, the friend of Allah. Peace be on you, O inheritor of Musa, the one who talked to Allah. Peace be on you, O inheritor of Isa, the spirit of Allah. Peace be on you, O inheritor of Muhammad, the beloved friend of Allah. Peace be on you, O inheritor of Ali, the commander of the faithful and friend of Allah. In this ziyarah, Imam Hussein is referred to as the inheritor of Nabi Nuh. Nabi Nuh was famous for building an ark. Do you remember the story of Nuh, Prophet Nuh, and the flood and the ark that he built? When he built the ark, he saved all those who were believers in Allah, and everyone else perished. Imam Hussein was also a savior of people. There is a famous hadith of the Prophet in which he says, Hussein is the lamp of guidance and the ark of salvation. So Imam Hussein is an inheritor of Prophet Nuh, because Prophet Nuh had built an ark. And in that ark, all the people who believed in Allah were saved. That was many hundreds of years ago. And in the same way, Prophet Muhammad said that Hussein is also the lamp of guidance and the ark of salvation. Whoever goes with Imam Hussein is going to be part of that ark that survives. Imam Hussein is also referred to, we just said that he's referred to as the inheritor of Nabi Ibrahim as well. Nabi Ibrahim is known as the father of Tawheed. He strongly believed in Tawheed. Tawheed means the one God, oneness of Allah. Because what Prophet Ibrahim did was he broke all the idols which the people at his time believed in. And he also fought against idols which you can't see, but things like power and wealth and status. Sometimes people might not believe in Allah, they might believe more in power, like Yazid. He didn't believe in Allah, but he wanted to be the Khalifa at any cost. He wasn't a true Muslim, he wasn't a good Muslim and didn't follow Islam, but he wanted the power, he wanted to be the leader of all the people at that time. So he didn't obey Allah, he obeyed power. He was thirsty for power. And in the same way, at the time of Nabi Ibrahim, there were people who worshipped power and money and wealth. Nabi Ibrahim was opposed to someone called Namrud. Namrud was a ruler at the time of Nabi Ibrahim who was very unjust and cruel. Imam Hussein, in the same way, stood for Tawheed. He stood for Allah, and he opposed the physical and spiritual tyrants of his time, one of whom was Yazid. When we recite Ziyarat-e-Waritha, we should also remind ourselves of all these values that we should try and follow and live for. And we should make Allah the focus of our lives and not wealth or power or status. How can we be sure that we can always act in this way and stand up against the things that we want to do sometimes as opposed to the things that we know we should be doing? Let's think about that while we're doing this lesson, okay? Another ziyarah is Ziyarat-e-Ashura. Ziyarat-e-Ashura has been taught to us by Imam Muhammad al-Baqir. He was the He was the fifth Imam. And this ziyarat is recited on the day of Ashura, on the 10th of Muharram. It can also be recited on other days, and it has a lot of sawab. One of the main things about Ziyarat-e-Ashura, one of the main things we talk about in Ziyarat-e-Ashura is Tawalla and Tabarra. So those are the two things that we learned yesterday. Tawalla, you will remember, means to love Rasulullah and the Ahlul Bayt and all the things, the values that they stood for. Tabarra means to disassociate or stay away from the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt and all their values. In other words, we want to be perfect and we want to stay away or reject imperfection. We have, as human beings, we've been created with something called fitra. Fitra means something which is inside us, which makes us human beings. And our natural desire as human beings is to be good and to try and get better, okay? But when we start doing sins or start doing things which are not good for us, then we forget our fitra or the true nature that human beings are. Let me give you an example. We all know that hurting other people or lying is wrong, don't we? Yeah. We know that to kill someone is wrong, don't we? That's part of our natural fitra, or the way we have been made as human beings. Allah has created us so that we know that it's wrong to lie or to hurt others or to kill others. Why do you think Yazid killed Imam Hussein then? Was he not listening to his fitra? He had sinned so much and he had turned away from Allah and from Islam that he had forgotten what his natural fitra was, the one that Allah had created him with. All right. So when we recite Ziyarat Ashura, we remember the personalities, the Imams who pursued the way of Allah, who followed Allah, and who rejected the things which we are not allowed to do. And in Ziyarat Ashura, one of the things we say is, I will read the English so that we can understand together. We say, I ask Allah, who honored me by knowing you, that's our Imam, and knowing your friends, and enabled me to disassociate from your enemies. So in other words, we're talking about tawalla and tabarra. And place me in your company and this world and the hereafter. So we ask Imam, tell Imam that I'm asking Allah to honor me by knowing you, by knowing Imam and his friends, and to stay away from Imam's enemies. And we ask Allah to put us in the company of Imam in this world and in the hereafter. Okay? If we want to be like with Imam Hussein in this world and the hereafter, then we can only achieve that by following our Imam, Imam Mahdi, in his values, his principle, and his bravery. Okay. Ziyarat Ashura is about adopting or living a life which is based on the values of Prophet Muhammad and rejecting the life and the values of his enemies. Think about the strong faith in Allah that Rasulullah and the Ahlul Bayt had, as we've said many times during the last few nights. Prophet Muhammad said once upon a time when he was alive, he said, if they put the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left hand, I will not give up my mission, which was a command from Allah. Means that if the people who were living at that time who didn't want to believe in Allah, if they gave me the sun and the moon, which means if they gave me everything good in this world, I would still not give up my mission for Allah. Okay? Imam Hussein also sacrificed everything, including his family and his companions, including his own baby, Ali Asghar, for the sake of Allah. Now, the question we have to think about is, what sort of things are we willing to sacrifice in the way of Allah to keep the message and the principle and the practices of Islam alive? So those are the sort of things that we should be thinking about when we come for majlis and during our days in Muharram. The last ziyarah we're going to talk about today is called Ziyarat an-Nahiya. All right? Ziyarat an-Nahiya is another ziyarah of Imam Hussein that has been taught to us by Imam Mahdi. Imam Mahdi recited this ziyarah. In this ziyarah, we are reminded of the Anbiya, that is all the prophets, and we're also reminded about Imam Hussein and the fact that he was one of the greatest martyrs. We are told about the companions of Imam Hussein who also offered sacrifices for the sake of Islam. And we give salam to all these personalities. We admire and we honor them, and we say that we want to be like them. One of the features of this ziyarah is that it contains a lot of description of the suffering of Imam Hussein in Karbala, especially on the day of Ashura. So in this ziyarah, Imam Mahdi remembers all the things that Imam Hussein went through on the day of Ashura. He says that Imam's hair, which was gray, became red with blood. His neck was cut, his cheeks touched the dust of Karbala. His teeth, Imam Hussein's teeth, were beaten with a stick, and his head was raised on a spear by Yazid's army. And Imam Mahdi talks about the grief, the immense sadness that he felt when he remembers these things. He says in Ziyarat an-Nahiya, Imam Mahdi says, I will therefore lament you morning and evening. I will weep blood in place of tears out of my anguish for you and my sorrow for all the things that happened to you. This is what he says to Imam Hussein, who was one of his great-grandfathers. In Ziyarat an-Nahiya, Imam Mahdi, who is our Imam, is lamenting the injustices which were done to Imam Hussein and his companions. How sad do you think Imam Mahdi would be when he sees our hearts also remembering the things that took place to Imam Hussein on the day of Ashura, okay? So reciting this ziyarah reminds us that we should always stand for the cause of Allah, and we should stand against oppressors in the same way that Imam Hussein did. This is a small, did you know, there was a sheikh called Abdul Karim Ha'iri who founded the Islamic seminary, which is called Hausa. Hausa is like a university of Islam, where people go to learn about all the things to do with Islam, okay, in a place called Qum, which is in Iran. And one day it is said that this Sheikh Abdul Karim Ha'iri was visiting the shrine of Imam Hussein in Karbala. He was doing the ziyarat of the shrine, and he was crying to the Imam, and he was saying, "Oh dear master, I have become a mujtahid." A mujtahid is someone who knows a lot about all the rules and regulations to do with Islam. Okay? He says, "I have become a mujtahid." He had he had a lot of knowledge about Islam, but he said, "I want to become a human being now." What do you think that means? Yes, Arman.
It means that he was at such a high level like every other person.
Could be, or yes, that's a good answer. What do you think, Amina?
I think he's because when I think he just doesn't want to think that if he knows so much, he doesn't want to think too much.
Well, that's another thing. Yes, he had a lot of knowledge, but he wanted to behave like a normal human being and become very close to Allah. Okay, so yes, you're right. Perhaps because he had a lot of knowledge, he didn't want to become too proud of what he knew. He wanted to become humble or remain humble. Okay, so in the same way that Sheikh Hayri's inspiration was to seek perfection and become a true human being, just the way Allah wanted him to be. Okay, not just someone who knew a lot of things and who taught people a lot of things. Now, on the next page, there is an activity which we'll do together in the same way as we have done in the past few days. So I think we'll start with, we'll look on this side where it has meanings. And if you know the answer, if you can see it from this side, put your hand up and let's see if we can join them together. The Arabic word zawara means what? Can you see? Isa, do you know? Good, well done. Okay, the next one. Hussein is the lamp of guidance and the ark of salvation, was said by Ali, Rasulullah. Okay. He is known as the father of Tawheed. Yes, Fatima. Prophet Ibrahim. Okay. Now, if I move this up, I hope we can still see the other ones. The main theme of Ziyarat Ashura is yes. Let's see. Amina, do you remember?
To always stand up to the cause of Allah
Okay, to always stand in the cause of Allah and stand against oppression. Okay. Ziyarat al-Nahiya reminds us that yes, Arman. Okay, let's have a go. Put that in there. The true essence of a human is Samin, proximity or closeness to Allah. Hope I can do this. Oh, I've lost it. Oh dear. I'm trying to lift it across, but it's not really going all the way down. On my screen, is it going down there? No, it can't really seem to do that for some reason. Okay, let's see what happens over here. Okay, I think that's the right answer. And the last one we're left with is Ziyarat al-Nahiyah has been narrated by Sakina Imam al-Mahdi. Let's see if I can lift and drag this one and make it go down. Yeah, I'm not sure why. So we can't, I think, we can't finish I can't click the finish because of that reason. So Ziyarat Ashura, it's actually the other way around. Ziyarat Ashura tells us about the beliefs of Tawalla and Tabarra, okay? And it's the other way around. Ziyarat al-Nahiyah tells us to stand in the cause of Allah against oppression, okay? So I'm sorry we can't finish that, but we'll go on to the next test yourself. But let's look at the key points that we've learned in this lesson, and then we'll do the next or the last test yourself. Oh. Nine. Okay, so what are the key things that we've learned in this lesson? Oops. Okay. We've learned that ziyarah should be hands down, just for a few minutes while we're doing this. We should recite ziyarah in such a way that we are focusing on our spiritual state and turning away from the material world. So remember we said zawara means to turn away and concentrate on just the thing that we're doing. So when we do ziyarat, we should focus and concentrate on the reciting the ziyarat, because it is a means by which we can become closer to Allah through the Ahlul Bayt. Ziyarat-e-Warisa shows us how Imam Hussein inherited the values of our Anbiya. The main theme of Ziyarat-e-Ashura is to embrace the beliefs and the lifestyle of the Ahlul Bayt and to reject the values of their opponents. And Ziyarat al-Nahiyah has been narrated by Imam Mahdi, and it is where he shows his grief for the things that happened to Imam Hussein. Okay, let's go to the last activity, which is here, and let's see if we can answer these questions. Okay. When we go to do ziyarah of the A'imma, we are deflecting, visiting them, turning away from our worldly self and focusing on our spiritual state, or turning away from our spiritual self and focusing on our material state. It's a bit of a tricky question. Let's see. Is it Hussein or Yusuf? Hussein. Self. Very good. What is the reason behind the name Ziyarat Warith? Let's give a chance to someone who hasn't answered. Yes? Hussein? Is it Hussein? Yep. No, I don't think so. Sakina, do you know?
Is the
Inheritor? Imam Hussein, because Imam Hussein is the inheritor of the Anbiya and the other important personalities mentioned in the ziyarah, because we said warith means an inheritor. What does Ziyarat-e-Ashura remind us of? Does it remind us of the event of Karbala, the personalities who dedicated their life in the way of Allah, the personalities who followed their desires, or the promise of Ghadir? Let's see. Isa. the event of Karbala. Does everyone agree with that?
No.
No? What do you think? What do you think? Okay, who says personalities and who thinks it's the event of Karbala? Which one should I go for? Sorry? Which one do you think we should go for? Not sure. Okay, let's have a go. I'm sure it'll tell us. Okay, what did you say first, Isa? The event of Karbala. Let's click that and see what happens. What does Imam Mehdi do in the Ziyarat al-Nahya? He describes the immense grief the event of Karbala caused him. He complains to Allah. He mourns the injustices done on Imam Hussein and his companions. He describes the immense grief of the event of Karbala, and he mourns the injustices done on Imam Hussein and his companions. Let's see, Ali, the last one, okay, because it's two things together. Performing ziyarat with understanding is not a must, is a mere ritual. Is it a way for us to understand our purpose of existence, or it makes us hate our enemies? Which one do you think it is? Yes, Yusuf. It is can't hear you.
It is
A mere ritual. No, it shouldn't be a ritual. It should be more than that. Fatima? Yeah. When we do the ziyarat with a true intention, then it's a way for us to understand why we are here and what we're supposed to do. So we had 4 out of 5 correct. Okay, number 1 was correct, and so was number 2, and number 3, Ziyarat Ashura was about the personalities who dedicated their life in the way of Allah. Okay, so let's try, and it's okay. Sometimes we can make a mistake. Okay. So thank you very much for being here today. And before we finish, let's all stand up and recite the ziyar. Well, actually, I might just, before you go away, what I might do is just stop this.